exactly. But so this links quite nicely to that text you just read out from John, I think it was.
Yes.
And he was saying that he doesn't experience any racism at ground. And I completely agree. I mean, I've been going to the football for 25, 30 years, and I've only experienced it once or twice, and then they've been called out.
Yes. I've never experienced it at Agbra, the home of football, Kidderminster Harris home ground. I've never experienced it there. But you have seen, I mean, some teams, you have seen British teams playing abroad. You've seen bananas still being thrown onto pitches, and I know it's not football, but some of the treatment Lewis Hamilton has received shows that there is still a fat slice of racism in sport.
But so my point was going to be that I haven't seen these things, but what I am seeing now is people booing the knee, and they're not getting confronted about it, and there's no action on them. So from that point of view, I think we are now seeing racism at football matches, but it's more subtle, and it's very hard to. So the first game I took my lad to, after the knee was being taken, and people were being booed, he's saying, "Why are they booing?"
Gosh,
and and that's hard to explain because.
Oh, this is much tougher. Why are they booing? Because they don't like anti-racist. They're anti-racist, which may not mean, it may be a bit glib of me to suggest that if you're going to use the laws of mathematics, that makes them pro-racism. But it's hard to think of another reason why you'd boo it, isn't there? And
then we look around, and football crowds are still, unfortunately, I think mainly Caucasian, but there are still, a few minority faces around us. And you look around.
How would they feel? Yeah, when
I'm not saying. And people saying getting rid of the knee would, be a victory for the racists, but it would also get rid of this subtle racism.
Gives them a little cat flap, doesn't it? It doesn't knock the door open, but it gives them a little cat flap of bigotry to do a little bit of booing when they would never these days have the shamelessness to actually shout out something racist. It gives them a low level invitation to articulate their racism without having to actually get into any trouble for it.
Correct, and it really doesn't sit well at all.
No,
I mean it's actually quite. When you're at a ground and you're sat in the correct area and everyone's applauding the knee.
Yes,
it's a lovely feeling.
Yes, of course.
But if you're in the wrong place and you hear the booing, it just
horrible.
Just doesn't feel.
That's the point, isn't it, about grey areas, and the you could make an argument for saying that not doing it gives them a win, but equally you could say an argument that doing it gives them a win because it gives them an opportunity to sort of scrawl their vile bigotries on the public space. Thank you, Rob. Really thoughtful stuff, actually. And I said this might be a pendulum hour, and I also said I wasn't sure that everybody had an equal right to contribute or an equal investment in it. And while I still think that's true, I think it's a football issue as well as a race issue. You may disagree, but I mean, it happens on the pitch. It's coming up to 11:45. You're listening to, or quarter to mystery hour, as we may also say. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. 11:47 is the time. It's been a really good conversation, this, actually. And it's been a bit... There hasn't been any passion, which intrigues me. There's been a lot of thoughtfulness, but a passionate defence of retaining the keeping of the knee has not popped up. Possibly you were expecting it from me. I don't know. I mean, the impact of a gesture is diluted by repetition, has, I'm afraid, lost some of its sheen in the course of the conversation. That's the line that the Times newspaper took upon the decision by Premier League captains to stop taking the knee before every single game. Because there are so many other examples in life of well, not to put too fine a point off there, of the polar opposite. Sam puts it well. Everything I know from marketing theory says that repetition is the best way to get your message across. People need to see it a minimum of 4 to 5 times before they even notice it, let alone starting to reflect or act on it. So saying repetition dilutes the message is just plain wrong. Of course, when Liverpool fans boo the national anthem, as a few of you have pointed out, all hell breaks loose in some quarters, and yet the booing of the taking of the knee was actually defended by Priti Patel and others. So it's a funny old business, but one thing I think we can derive some comfort from and encouragement from is the testimony from football fans that racism is now overt racism at almost all grounds in the country. I think it was Millwall who came to prominence for booing the taking of the knee. No surprise there. And then England fans, although I'm sure there are loads, I know there are loads of Millwall fans who would be just as repelled by that as we are. But then England fans as well did it. So, that is actually evidence that there are still racists in football grounds. But you don't actually hear hide nor hair from them most of the time, almost all of the time. I'm getting that from all corners. Andy's in Colchester. Andy, what do you think?
Hello. I'm disappointed to see it stopping, because actually I think for such a simple gesture to have such a powerful message is a really good thing. And to coin a phrase from certain right-wing commentators, it winds up the right people.
That seems to be the motivating force for almost everything that's coming out of right-wing media at the moment. It winds up the right people. It upsets all the right people. I think, to my embarrassment, that's probably a phrase I've used in the past, but it's pathetic, isn't it?
Well, it is. But to make if that one simple little 3-second gesture, which when I'm at Ipswich gets roundly applauded, and the couple of people around that might boo it get told what to do. If it just makes a handful of people like that sit there and think, well, hang on a second, why does this simple little thing, this tiny little 3-second gesture at the start of a football match, why does that wind me up so much?
Yeah.
Why does it irritate me so much? And if it makes them just look in the mirror and say, you know what, maybe I'm the problem here, not the gesture, then it can only be a good thing.
Oh, you're like me, aren't you? Your optimism is overcoming your experience,
It's the hope that kills you.
It's the hope that kills you. Because I don't know. It'd be interesting to have measured booing, to have seen whether it's gone up or down as the time has passed. But if you are, even if you don't think you're part of the problem, if you are sitting there thinking, oh, here we go, then it's actually a reason to keep it in place until it becomes absolutely as normal as doing the sign of the cross in church or saluting a superior officer when you're in the army. It is. We are committed to the opposition of racism.
Yeah.
No, it's a funny one.
I don't see how that can possibly be a bad thing.
No, I mean, as for supporting Ipswich, Andy, that's a different kettle of fish altogether. Nitesh is in Cardiff. Nitesh, what do you think?
Hi, James. I think one of the issues with this, I think, is the term gesture and then tying it to the repetition. I think
it's usually detractors who use the word gesture.
Yeah,
or have we all been using that word? I'm not sure.
I think even if it's with the best of intentions. So, for example, I think the term racism, when someone says, for example, the players are kneeling to tackle racism, I think that's just too big of a concept that people can't. It's like when someone says, I'm a billionaire. Well, it's very hard to comprehend what exactly that means.
Yeah, okay. Let me translate then as just acknowledge the existence of and our opposition to. Then no one's kneeling to fix racism, are they? Or if they are, then they're even more optimistic than the last lad.
I think it's further than that. So I think the most positive way would be is to tie it to policy discussions. So, for example, if the players kneeled and said, we're kneeling and we want these 5 action points. For example, it could be a reform of the education system, but tying the term and the kneeling to an actual policy ask. I think that could help the cause. Yeah,
PE for girls, football for girls, PE classes for girls involving football.
I can use a very specific example. So I grew up in Wales, and through the education system there, we learned plenty about Henry VIII's wives. We learned about the Industrial Revolution, Nazi Germany. I don't remember at any point in time learning about the empire and the influence of the empire in India, as an example. And the impact that had. And I think that's the problem. I think as an example in education, there's a lot we could teach in terms of the influence that Britain has had on the world, positive and negative, in kind of the most objective way possible. But I think if, for example, the players said, well, we're tackling racism and what that means in real terms are these policy asks.
Yeah.
I think that can help the cause.
I think this was Wilfred Zaha's point, actually, although he quite wrongly got held up as by people who were minded either to boo the taking of the knee or to pretend that they, thought that it had all gone too far. They just didn't like the idea of mirrors being held up on the pitch. Zaha was opposed to it because he thought it was almost a let-off. It actually avoided some of the issues you're addressing and you're directly citing. So have an agenda in place that the kneeling supports.
Maybe one final point on that. I think it's harder. I think for people. So when people are kind of booing, those bigots and the racists in the crowd are always going to be like that, and they're probably going to boo regardless of whether there was a policy kind of point added to the.
Yeah, but it gave them an opportunity, Nitesh, that wasn't there before. Bizarrely, I hadn't thought of it that way until the caller suggested it.
I think it's harder, and I know you've done this in the past, of where, like, I think if, for example, the players were asking for 5 different policies,
I like your point.
I think it's harder for people to then boo, because they're actually, rather than booing the concept of racism, they're actually booing or opposing the actual policy points and the reforms. And so I think it's a little bit hard. So, for example, I know you've said it with, like, free school meals in the past. Well, like, if someone's opposed to free school meals, then they're directly opposed to free school meals, rather than just, like, talking around the point. And I think if the players say, well, we're asking for these 5 points, if someone's booing it, well, then...
So it was a bit too vague. I mean, that's what you meant when you came on. I didn't fully follow, but I do now. When you said that racism's too big an issue, it doesn't feel zoned in on, it doesn't feel addressed. I understand your argument, and I agree with parts of it, and I don't want to zing you off the radio, but I think Martin Luther King would probably have disputed some of what you've said, although not necessarily all of it. There's room for both, of course. I mean, what is a gesture? You don't have to presume that it's meaningless or hollow. You know, what is an expression of love is a gesture. A kiss is a gesture. Kneeling is a gesture. So I take your point, I really do. And I think I agree with a lot of what you said about the need for almost a tick box. So you can say, why are you doing this? Because we want this, this, this and this. We want an end to racism is too big, not too vague, simply too big a target, perhaps. Simon's in Melton Mowbray. Simon, what would you like to say?
I'd like to say that the issue that we've got, James, is that people like Donald Trump and the people that push this populism, people like Priti Patel, have conflated what is an anti-racist gesture with Marxism and that terrifying word that every American in the world is absolutely as frightened as anything of.
And it's happened here as well. It's happened here. You're absolutely right. Here. Yes.
And I think that what we've got is you know, I'd hate to use these terms, but working class, white, British, male, middle-aged men that have been taught over the course of their lives that Marxism is the enemy.
It's not necessarily working class, actually, but the rest of it can stand. I don't know, and you've come on late, so I can't find the message now, but it was from Trevor, and it made the points you make. No, I'm not opposed to the taking of the knee. I'm opposed to the Marxist programme to defund the police. And the fact. Now, let's use Trevor as an example. I don't believe him.
But that's not what's happening here. That might be what.
No, but it's not even happening in America. You've just got the same 3 words being deployed by... You know this and I know this, but I don't believe Trevor. I think Trevor is a racist, and I think he hates the taking of the knee, but this conflation that Donald Trump has achieved gives him a fig leaf and a get-out, you see.
And I agree with you, because the response to Marcus Rashford and...
free school meals.
Saka and all these people... No, well, not even just
after the penalties.
Missing penalty.
Yeah, absolutely that.
The fact that, it was 3 black men that missed penalties, therefore black men aren't worth as much as white men. And it's disgraceful, but it's all come from this conflation. I don't necessarily think that these people that are booing are bad people.
No.
I think that they have been fed a message that's incorrect. And I think they've been fed a message by some very prominent people that is incorrect.
And I like your generosity of spirit when you talk about whether or not they are bad people. This Marxist trope being just a cover for the racists, as George has just put it in a text. But there had to be an appetite for being fed what they were fed there in the first place.
Well, they did, but there was an appetite for Brexit. There was an appetite for a lot of very stupid ideas, James.
Yeah, and it's just a question of how many cynical and prominent people are prepared to come along and feed those appetites.
To push that. Yeah.
For personal gain. There we are. Oh, you brought Brexit. Is that the first time we mentioned Brexit today on the show? Let me check. Are you sure, Keith? I thought we used to keep a tally, didn't I? But then I forgot, like I do with all my best ideas. Simon, thank you very much indeed. We are expecting a big announcement on interest rates from the Bank of England, the biggest in generation. So we will have a very quick look at that, a detailed look, but quick look at that at the very top of the next hour, because the next hour is mystery. Hour, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio dial. And that's it, really. Don't be surprised when there's a slightly different flavour at the top of the hour, because interest rates are going to affect absolutely everybody. And the Bank of England seems set, although quite often the predictions are wrong, to bring in one of the biggest rises in living memory. After that, though, business as usual and mysteries to be solved. 12:03 is the time. Mystery Hour is on the horizon, but before that, there it is. It's been a long time coming. Quite often, actually, I've come on air on potential interest rate days, wondering whether we'd have to interrupt proceedings to deal with the rise. And then the forecast rise or the predicted rise hasn't actually appeared, but it's certainly appeared today. And it is, as Holly just told you, the biggest in 27 years. Gemma Godfrey is a personal finance expert, and she joins me now. Gemma, let's begin with the idiot's guide, and I'm happy to play the role of the idiot. What is this interest rate rise designed to do?
Well, the reason why the Bank of England has raised interest rates very aggressively is because of the rising cost of living. So the goal is they make borrowing more expensive, people borrow less, people spend less, and then that dampens prices. But the difficulty is that the negative impacts are felt first, because if you have a variable rate mortgage, if you have any loans, your debt will get more expensive, and then any benefits are going to take far, far, far longer. And ultimately, they're structural. It's energy prices that are going up.
Good news, I suppose, for savers, even though that some of their gains will be wiped out by the increases in energy and cost of living that you've just described. The bigger the savings, the bigger the boost.
Yes, I mean, the difficulty is what we see is banks tend to be quite slow passing it on. So in an ideal world, saving rates would go up as well. But actually, it takes quite a long time, and the increase isn't as strong as the increase that we feel on borrowing.
So what should we be looking out for?
Well, usually I like to come on with lots of different tips, but I think the most important thing is just to be able to watch what you're spending as closely as possible. There's the government scheme called Help for Households that's helping people with their shopping, with phone bills as well. But really, this is going to be a very tough time. And we also heard today that the energy cap is going to be increased every 3 months rather than 6 months as well. So it'll be a tough time.
Winter is coming, isn't it? I mean, literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, and this is a war that people are fighting on all fronts. It's food, it's energy, it's transport, and now what today means, it means borrowing's also getting more expensive as well.
Did the Bank of England have any choice, really?
Well, what people are actually saying is that they've been too slow to increase rates, because the biggest, if we just put it in context, our cost of living is rising 5 times. It's expected 5 times as much as their target. They want 2% inflation, and we're looking at more than 10%. So they didn't really have a choice, and actually they're being criticised for potentially being too slow. And
finally, Gemma, if you're on a variable mortgage, is there anything you can do when things like this happen? A variable rate mortgage.
The difficulty is that a lot of banks and mortgage lenders do price this in. So people that are on a fixed rate, fantastic. People that are actually, their term is due to finish, you can actually go sometimes 6 months in advance and try and refix. But it is a tough time.
You can say that again. Gemma Godfrey, many thanks indeed. Personal finance expert, talking us through this 27-year high increase in interest rates. If you're just tuning in, from 0.5% to 1.75%, which is both aggressive and yet quite possibly, as Gemma has explained, a little bit too late. All the more reason, I suppose, to be grateful for the weekly light relief afforded by...
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Mystery Hour with James O'Brien.
Oh, and we're back in the room. 6 minutes after 12 is the time. The phone lines are open. The mission is simple. Bring me your mysteries and I will bring you solutions. Or rather, you will bring me solutions and I will be like the middleman, if you like. Who, why, what, where, when, whither, even the occasional wherefore. Something bubbling away in the back of your brain that you know must have an answer, but you don't know what the answer is. Ring in, ask it. Somebody else listening will know, and we will put you together and create radio harmony, radio magic. And of course, recently there has been an added dimension to the unalloyed joys of Mystery Hour, and that added dimension is your opportunity to win your own Mystery Hour board game. A rather brilliant board game. And I can say that because I didn't make it or devise it. It's been put together by much cleverer people than me over at Big Sky Games, and you can win your own Mystery Hour board game by being my favourite contributor of the day. The full terms and conditions are at lbc.co.uk. You have to say that in a really quick voice. It's a rule of radio. The full terms and conditions are at lbc.co.uk. It's as quick as you can do it. The terms and conditions apply at lbc.co.uk. Should we just start? I've got that mood as over. I put some nuts in my smoothie this morning again. Did I tell you this? I don't know whether it's affecting my energy levels. Okay, a little bit bouncier than usual. Let's start with Jenna, who's in Perth. Jenna, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on.
Is there an international language between air traffic controllers and pilots?
Ooh, there must be, mustn't there?
You would think so, but I don't know, so that's why I'm phoning you.
So if you're flying your German plane into Abu Dhabi, what language will the control tower speak to the cockpit?
Yeah.
French or English, you'd think, wouldn't you? English.
Yeah, you would think, but then if there's pilots and air traffic controllers that are solely based around Asia, etc., would that apply?
So flying from Jakarta to Abu Dhabi, in a Malaysian Airlines plane, what would I can't believe we've never had that before. Which means, Jenna, we probably have. I've just forgotten. But why do you want to know? What made you think about it? You just got back from your holidays.
Yeah, we went on a family holiday, first time in a long time, and the flight happened to come from, I think it was Amsterdam or somewhere, and just it got me thinking.
I like it. We shall find out for you, because there will be plenty of pilots and airport staff listening. Thank you, Jenna. Marion is in High Wycombe. Marion, question or answer?
A question.
Carry on.
Why is cubed pancetta located in the cooked section of a supermarket with the hams and chickens, but you have to cook it before using it?
Well, this is very niche.
Yeah, I use it a lot.
For carbonara, is it?
Yeah, carbonara, all sorts of things. I'd really like it, but I have only ever found it.
Well, how many different supermarkets?
Bacon section.
Yeah.
No, it could be Sainsbury's, Tesco, Waitrose, anywhere. It always is in the cook section, and it always says cook before using, but it is only ever located in the hams and cook section.
Well, I can tell you that in my local Morrison's, it's with the bacon.
Well, then maybe I should go there for it.
Well, you don't. I mean, it's not a problem, is it? It's not. I mean, you can eat it raw. I mean, you can have thin pancetta. No, well, you wouldn't really, would you?
The sliced pancetta is there, and it's fine. But the cubes,
the little cubes, the lardons.
They always say cook before using, but they're still found.
Well, I don't know. I imagine that the staff in, I know maybe it's different in different parts of the country, but possibly the staff in High Wycombe think that because it comes in the same crate, it comes from the same suppliers as the hams, because it's cured, isn't it? It's coming from the ham people rather than the bacon people, so they just put it on the shelves with
Could be.
With the hams and all right. I mean, it's a rare question, that, isn't it? Why is the pancetta? This is the most middle-class question we've ever had on Mystery Hour. Why is the pancetta always in the cooked? Always in the cooked section of. I shall find out for you, or not, as the case may be. I don't think that was a stone cold guarantee. 12:11 is the time. The language of international air travel. If the planes and control towers and cockpits are talking to each other, do they always talk in the same language? And what is that language? And why is the pancetta always in the cooked section in supermarkets? Eric's in Deptford. Eric, question or answer?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I was just wondering, do we think the world gets heavier or lighter, or possibly stays the same every day?
What inspired this thought? What made you think of this? Just so I get a better handle on what you're asking.
I'll be honest, I have no idea.
No.
But I think when I think of things like, say, like trees, they obviously start off like as little seeds and tiny, and then they'll grow to be quite big, and then obviously that's really heavy. But then at the same time, you've got like natural resources being like turned into things that become heavier. But then you've got planes that take off, so now there's no that weight off the plane.
Also, someone might set fire to a tree.
Yeah, exactly, and then it turns into ash.
Isn't it? I mean, all matter exists. All matter that will ever exist currently exists. It just all you have is a constant. Oh boy. a constant transfer of matter. But when you say how much does the world weigh, what are you weighing?
Well, I suppose
the atmosphere as well as the Earth, or just the globe, just the.
Probably just the globe, because I say, like, if you take all the planes off the Earth, then that weight's now not on the Earth, is it?
No.
And just like if, yeah. So, yeah.
And now I feel, having been to Professor Brian Cox's superb show at the Royal Opera House last night, I feel I should actually have been able to answer this question. But oddly, he didn't address this issue. Did he?
Yeah.
I shall try and find out for you. Does the world get heavier or lighter? Ever?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, you're on. Have you been?
Awesome.
Have you been? What have you been? We late night, was it? We bit. Been,
yeah,
no,
there's all sorts. That
all right.
You think about
just,
randomly.
yeah, no. I mean, all our brains have been to these places, but I'm just wondering why. Dan's in Halston in Norfolk. Dan, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on, Dan.
To the aviation language question.
Marvellous. Go on.
It is English.
Yes, I thought it might be.
Yeah. It's any pilot or air traffic controller needs to be able to speak English to a certain level so they can all speak to each other in a common language. Anywhere in the world, any even sworn enemies of Britain. Well, I'm not entirely sure about North Korea. No, I don't know if they have any airlines, but that is the rule. And how fluent do you have to be? Pretty fluent, I imagine. Pretty fluent, yeah. You need to be able to have a good conversation with the person at the other end of the line and cope with unexpected stuff. Understand each other. Yeah, qualifications? I interviewed and went for the test day to become an air traffic controller many years ago. But you didn't follow through on it? Or they didn't like the cut of your jib? I got a letter saying you got very, very close. We invite you to reapply, but I went off and did something else. Well, and never got around to reapply. Blimey. And your English was up to sniff? I think that bit was okay. Round of applause. He was mostly playing around with, hey, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming in. Quick, stop! Nick's in Haverhill. It's from Norfolk to Suffolk. Nick's in Haverhill. Nick, question or answer?
It's a question, James.
Carry on.
I was watching a TV. I know you're up against the clock, so I'll be quick. I was watching...
hang on. God, that's ridiculous. Listeners are now more professional than the bloody presenter. I'm going to come to you after the junction. Is that all right?
Sure.
Did they tell you I was up against the clock, or did you work it out for yourself?
Well, I worked it out for myself.
Oh, that's even worse. Honestly, it's a miracle.
If there's any jobs going.
Well, I tell you what, you're way ahead. I haven't even said the time yet. It's 12:15.
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien.
It is 12:16. Back to Nick in Haverhill, who very courageously intervened to make sure that we went to that last junction on time, which is I should have got you to do the time check as well, Nick. Where were we? Question or answer?
You're welcome. It was a question. And now we've got a bit longer. I've been listening to you for a few years, and you've really changed the way I think and view politics in particular. So I just want to thank you for opening my mind.
Well, a beautiful thing to say. Thank you, mate. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You're very welcome. I was watching on a lighter note. I was watching an advert the other day. It cropped up. I think it was for one of the insurance companies or something about savings. And there was this guy, and he ran off into his castle room, and he was trying to hide his treasure from the ensuing soldiers that were running after him. Yeah. And a little pig walked in. And the guy decided to stuff all his treasures and goods and gems inside a pig.
Is this a fever dream or an advert? A real pig?
I think no. It was like a hairy little brown hog. It wasn't a traditional pink-looking, very medieval.
Where are we going with this then?
Hog. I just wanted to know the origin of saving in a piggy bank.
No,
why it's a pig.
I was hoping you were going to say that, Nick, because I know the answer to this. I think it's in the board game, actually.
Oh, well, I hope to find that out for myself.
Very nicely played. So it is, oddly, the word pig, which wasn't spelt P-I-G, had a Y in it and possibly more than one G, is just a type of clay from which a pot would be made. And into said pot, ancient peasants would put their coins. And it just became a play over the years that potters, given that it was called pig, would then make the pot look like a pig. So pig began as a word for clay, a particular type of clay, a cheap clay, I guess. And then it became and then it became shaped like a pig, just as a marketing wheeze, I suppose, more than anything else. And that is the answer. And I know that because it's come up.
Didn't do bad, have it?
You what?
NatWest didn't do bad out of it.
No, they didn't. You're my age, are you? I remember that advert. Give us a positive. You get the wall chart. Get the piggy wall chart. And that is, I mean, qualifications. It's in the Mystery Hour. It's either in the Mystery Hour ball game or it's come up on Mystery Hour before. And astonishingly, I've actually managed to remember the answer. So I'll take my first round of applause of the day.
Well played.
No, thank you, Nick. Do you want to do a quick time check, mate, or are you busy?
No, we're ahead of schedule.
Linda is in Cultybragan in Scotland. Question or answer, Linda?
Oh, hi, James. How are you going?
Very well.
Good. It's a question.
Yes.
I'm just wondering why we have eyelids so we can close our eyes without having to put anything over them.
Correct.
But why don't we have nose lids or ear lids? Because there would be times, and you would think that evolutionary-wise...
No, you wouldn't.
You would think that maybe we'd have evolved to be able to spontaneously close our ears or nose.
Would you wonder what would be the benefit of that?
Well, if you're in a sandstorm thing and your hands are full, you can't hold your nose, you can't cover your ears, and yet you're in danger of being...
Your hands are full.
Why can we close our eyes then?
All right, listen, bearing in mind this is a family programme and it's the school holidays, so there'll be children listening. But the principle of evolution is reproductive advantage, as you know. So evolutionary mutations or mutations in our DNA that provide us with a reproductive advantage, i.e. we are more likely to procreate as a consequence of that mutation. What is it, do you think, about people caught in sandstorms with their hands full who had somehow developed a mutation that allowed them to close their ears that would prompt them to have more children than everybody else stuck in the same sandstorm with their hands full?
Well, okay. Well, if I put it another way, I've got a partner who's enthusiastically flatulent.
Into what?
Enthusiastically flatulent.
Okay, that's all right, yes.
And being able to spontaneously close my nose.
Yeah, but it's not going to give you a reproductive advantage, is it?
Well, it might.
Well, then we'll find out, because I know long COVID is unlikely to be passed on from parent to child. But the short answer is that, your eye is a very sensitive and delicate organ. And if you lost the ability to see, then you'd be at a huge evolutionary disadvantage. So therefore, something that covers your eye and minimises the likelihood of your eyesight being compromised is an epic evolutionary advantage. So that's going to be passed on immediately and very quickly. Your ears and your nose are not highly sensitive.
I think.
Well, look, if I poke you in the ear, If I poke you in the ear, you can still hear.
Yeah, if you poke me in one eye, I can still see.
Yeah, but now you're just being silly, I think. You're being pedantic. Because you're not going to just have one eyelid, are you? Both eyes are protected equally because they're both as important as each other. If I poke you in the nose, you can still smell.
Not if you break my nose completely.
So there is no evolution. Yeah, if I break your nose completely, it doesn't matter whether it's got a lid on it or not, does it?
Well,
so the answer is...
I'm talking about poking.
I'm talking about going definitive. The answer is there is absolutely no evolutionary advantage to having ear lids or nose lids. Round of applause for me, please, Keith. Thank you, Linda. Thank you for playing. No, carry on. Thank you. Very nicely played. Ear lids. Round of applause for James. Linda goes on the list. Paul's in Derby. Paul, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on, Paul.
I say, okay, so it's the air traffic control language.
Oh, yes.
So your previous caller wasn't quite correct. It's English is the universal language on the airwaves, but actually if you're flying an aircraft that is registered in the country that you're flying in or over, you can talk in your language. So if you're an Air France pilot flying over France or on the ground at Charles de Gaulle, you can talk French to the air traffic control.
So if you've got like a match-up, French plane, French airport, German plane, German airport, then you can do it. But so the default is English, but the exception is, inevitably. I mean, it makes perfect sense because you're going to have a much greater facility. However fluent your English is, you're probably going to speak your native language better.
Absolutely, and they do, and it does cause a little bit of confusion sometimes on the ground when there's two languages being spoken.
Yes,
when you're trying to work out what's going off. But yeah, that is the answer.
I like that. Qualifications?
I'm a captain for a long-haul airline.
Very nicely done.
World's favourite airline.
Oh, the world's favourite airline. Well, that narrows it down a bit. Is it still? Do you still claim that? Oh, it doesn't matter. Let's get a round of applause for Paul.
Probably best not go into that.
Exactly. Lovely stuff. Thank God they didn't put those flags on the back of the plane all those years ago. Thanks to Maggie, that you probably had to be here for the first hour of the programme to appreciate that intervention. Thank you, Paul. Great stuff. Airports, Paul. That's a nice question. Jenny will be happy with that. James is in Southampton. James, question or answer?
Question, James.
Carry on, James.
Okay, so I used to work in retail a while ago. And obviously part of the job there is to challenge people for their age if they looked young enough to buy alcohol, cigarettes, whatever.
Is it?
But we also had an age restriction check on non-alcoholic beer. And I'm like, we never got explained why that was the case. So
how long ago was this? You've just reminded me of Woke Watch. We've got a Woke Watch. Can you get me the Woke Watch? Woke Watch about Heineken beer. Can you find it? It was in the Sun yesterday. Thank you very much. Sorry, did that happen?
I don't mind showing my ID to buy my non-alcoholic beer.
Why do you require? Was it in all shops? I mean, are you sure you have to show ID? Non-alcoholic beer is very rarely 0.0%. You know.
Yeah, I know there is. In some of them there are, but there is a minuscule content of alcohol. That could be something to do with it. But in most retailers I've been to and tried to buy it, I have to either they'll come and clear the prompt at the self-checkout, or I don't have to show my ID anymore. Thankfully, that says a lot more about my age. But,
I mean, it might just be that it makes life easier because you're on the till. You know what it's like. You're busy. You just anything that's got beer on it, you need to show ID so that you don't have to waste 5 minutes looking for the volume on it.
I was trying to work out. Is there an age restriction on it? Or is it just a trading standards kind of thing? Or?
Not even trading standards, just ease of speed and efficiency at the tills. We'll find out. Someone will know. David's already been in touch to say he's right. Sainsbury's still does this. I don't think I've ever bought non-alcohol beer in my life, James. So I don't know.
Well, you should really give it. It's changed. It's changed my alcohol intake massively. You should give it a go, and some of them are really good.
All right. I may do that at some unspecified point in the future. I like that. Why do they check the age of people buying non-alcohol beer? What else are we looking for? We've done the earlids. That's a brilliant answer. We've done the piggy bank. I'm on form today, Keith. I'm knocking them out of the park. We've got pancetta, and we've got Eric's question. Eric's question about whether or not the world ever gets heavier or lighter, man, or just stays the same. Del's in Basingstoke. Del, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on, Del.
I'm a taxi driver in Basingstoke. I've been driving around for years, and I still can't work this one out.
Still can't find a passenger.
Still can't find a passenger. No, why are closes called closes, streets called streets, roads called roads, ways called ways, avenues, lanes, drives, terraces, etc.? I can't work out why they're called what they are.
Well, why
and
it's
if
all
there's
different.
Any particular reason. Yeah, what makes a close a close? What makes a street a street? What makes a road a road? So obviously there's an olden day one, maybe there's a reason why, but there's new estates going up and they just put them in a lane, or they put them avenue or a way or a terrace, and I'm wondering why that is, and if there's any particular reason.
Councils do it, don't they? I think it. I mean, just variety, I suppose. You can't, and it gives you a little bit more options because you could have an Acacia Road, an Acacia Avenue, an Acacia Close. So it gives you a little.
Somebody just is there in the council planning office says, "Oh, my go, I'm going to call this one an avenue," or
I don't think you're far off it, but I'm obviously not going to claim that is the correct answer. But I mean, it's a bit Sherlock Holmesy as well. Once you've eliminated the impossible, I mean, what else could it be?
Yeah, because, I drive down something, I'm thinking, right, this is a street, so there must be a reason why this is a street. And then you go down another one and it's a close, and it's exactly the same. And you think, I thought maybe it might be one had a shop on it or something, or one had a closed, one way in, one way out.
There'll be some possible distinctions on that. Close being the most obvious is probably a crescent, isn't it, or something like that?
Well, a crescent is the only one I've worked out because of the shape of it.
But I think closes are dead ends, aren't they? If it's a closed,
possibly.
yeah. But roads and streets, I wouldn't know the difference. Lanes are smaller. We'll find out, and we want it from the council point of view, don't we? From the people that name the actual thoroughfares.
And then I can retire.
You and me both. I like that. And avenues are lined by trees. Avenues traditionally lined by trees, but that doesn't really answer
Maybe. Just want to say a big thanks as well. A huge fan of the show. So
cheers, Della.
Keep going. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate that. It's just coming up to 12:30. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I've heard from our programme's favourite grocer, Andreas of Chelsea, who can confirm that pancetta is kept with the cold cuts at his emporium on the perfectly reasonable grounds, as it's the only uncooked Italian item that we do. But that's not going to apply to supermarkets, is it? Because Italian. Could it be the fact that it's Italian that sees it put with the Parma ham and the prosciutto and things like that? So it's your Italian hams, cooked and uncooked, that are all together. I don't know. Possibly the most middle-class question we've ever had on the programme. Although not necessarily. I'm sure there has been competition over the years. Time now for the news headlines with Tim Humphrey.
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien. Call 0345 6060 973.
12:32 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. I've done the airports. Pancetta. Why is the pancetta with the hams and not with the bacons, the uncooked pancetta? Does the world get heavier or lighter ever? And what's the story with avenues, closes, streets, roads? How is it decided what's going to be what? And why do you have to show your ID when you buy non-alcoholic beer? I quite like that one, the non-alcoholic, because would anybody under 18 ever try to buy non-alcoholic beer? It would be a very odd way to pass your time as an under 18-year-old. Paul's in Southwark. Paul, question or answer?
I have a question.
Yes.
Why do people feel tranquil when we arrive and look at bodies of water?
I mean, I presume it doesn't apply to everybody. It applies to me, but...
Yeah, and it applies to me. I mean, I don't know whether it's because we're always with someone older who feels that way and then we just get influenced by that and it's passed on, or if it's because something we're looking at.
I think I might know.
Okay.
You sound a bit sceptical.
Disappointed.
Yeah. Well, at least you're on it. Why?
Because I want to go on the board. I want to get it answered by.
It's an incredible honour to be answered by me, the inventor and instigator of Mystery Hour.
It's very true.
Whose picture do you think's on the board games box? I tell you why I think I know this. Because during lockdown, I really noticed how much I missed Big Skies. And funnily enough, the company that makes the Mystery Hour board game is called Big Sky Games, but that's just a coincidence. And so I looked it up. And it makes sense. The more you can see of the horizon, the more relaxed your lizard brain will be, because you know that there's no threats incoming.
Okay.
So if you are beside a huge body of water, that's a huge weight off you. Especially if it's empty, and that's a huge weight off your subconscious. Because although you might need to check over your shoulder to make sure no one's creeping up on you with a big club, the threat is clearly not there. So I bet that's linked to it. That and then there's the sound of running water, and there's probably something linked to the womb. But I bet it's to do with the fact that you can see such a wide expanse of the horizon, and there is no threat on it anywhere.
Okay, because I was thinking...
You're going to sound a bit more bloody excited than that, Paul.
Well, because I mean, I suppose looking it up is arguably a piece. It is proof, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, okay. I was thinking it was something to do with like white noise, the way that you just zone out in the same way, maybe. But anyway, yeah.
I wouldn't have thought so. I don't think I can give myself a round of applause for that. But I thought I'm not going to lie to you, mate. I thought you would enjoy the practice of genuinely wrestling with an important question together live on the radio. I thought you'd find it a bit more enjoyable than you did.
I'm really enjoying it. The fact I'm even speaking to you is up there, to be honest.
Honestly, it's too late now, Paul. Why do we find bodies over... It's a rubbish question. It's the worst question. Why do we find bodies of water tranquil? 0345 6060 973. I've got one for you. This is all down to James's question about non-alcoholic beer, but you're not going to believe what is going to feature in today's
Woke Watch.
Lager fans blast new Heineken tipple aimed at lighter drinking Gen Z Brits. Heineken's new woke lager, aimed at lightweight millennial drinkers, has been slammed by customers who want to return to tradition. This is in the Sun newspaper yesterday, which is effectively, I don't know what. I mean, what? Is there a prize for getting the word woke into a story, regardless of whether it has any place there or not? So Heineken, the Dutch lager giant, has launched a new 4% alcohol by volume tipple designed to suit lighter drinking Generation Z Brits. Heineken Silver. There was another one, wasn't there? There was a lighter Heineken out years ago as well. I can't remember. So anyway, it uses an idea to create a significantly less bitter taste than the brand. So they've made a lager that's a bit weaker than their normal lager, 4% as opposed to 5%, so that, you can drink it more, probably, than you would the 5% lager without falling over. Apparently, this is woke. Now listen to the people they've lined up to attack it. By the way, they're not taking away the 5% one. There's absolutely no threat to your normal lager. And, lager aficionados may perhaps, aficionados or aficionados? Lager fans may argue that Heineken is not really a brew for a connoisseur, but I don't want to go down that particular road. Here's one. Listen to this. Thomas Simpson, 44, of Bexley in southeast London, said, "I fear this is the future of beer now. Woke options aimed at Generation Z rather than traditional beer lovers who have been drinking it for years." Mate. Plumber Paul Rogers of Alstree in Derby said, "This is just woke madness. Beer should be traditional." So in our never-ending quest for things that are woke, or what does woke mean, now it means beer that is marginally less alcoholic than another beer. The one that is marginally less alcoholic than the other one is woke. And that concludes today's Woke Watch. God, it's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? Dan's in Brighton. Dan, question or answer?
Hi, James. It's a question.
Carry on.
Do babies get songs stuck in their head?
Go on, tell me more. Explain.
Well, I sing to my baby all the time.
Yeah.
Some really probably quite annoying tunes.
I'm sure they're lovely.
And I just wondered if she goes to bed with those songs stuck in her head.
Well, how would we ever find out?
Well, I don't know. That's another question, isn't it?
So she's beyond articulating herself at this moment.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And she doesn't...
She can say a couple of words, but
not...
Oh,
that's sweet. She doesn't sing back or hum back or anything like that?
No. Well, I don't know. She might be. She makes a lot of strange noises.
When you sing, I mean, would you be able to hazard a bet on what her favourites are? If you sing a certain song, do you get a certain smile or something like that?
Nelly does a poo-poo in a nappy. Nelly does a poo-poo in a diaper. Nelly does a poo-poo in a nappy, so we have to give a bum a wiper.
Okay, stop now. That's lovely. Yes.
Thanks.
And she enjoys that one in particular, does she?
I guess so. I don't know. She can't talk.
She can't smile or anything yet.
Oh, she can smile, yeah.
But are there some songs... This is like pulling teeth, man. Are there some songs that make her smile more than other songs?
Not that I've noticed.
Right. So you're asking about earworms, really?
Yes.
Okay.
But not just songs that I sing. I mean, we listen to music all the time. So
I would imagine
she knows those tunes and gets...
Yeah, I guess the question is, can babies frame stuff in their brain even before they can say it out loud? Because you can't get an earworm unless you can sing it. I wouldn't have thought. But I don't know. I shall find out for you. And you got a lovely singing voice. Can babies get earworms? They're all here. Jasper's in South Croydon. Jasper, question. South Croydon. Question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on.
To the does the world get heavier or lighter?
Yeah, man.
And it kind of depends. Are we talking about everything that's on the world or everything that's under the atmosphere?
Everything that... No, just the Earth, not the atmosphere. Yeah, I mean, I don't bloody know, do I? I didn't ask the question. Eric did, but he kept talking about aeroplanes taking off. So if we were going to include the atmosphere, then aeroplanes taking off wouldn't make any difference, would they? So it is just the Earth, the Earth, the confines of the Earth.
Then yes, it does change. So the plane example, that's one example of how the Earth will get lighter when it takes off.
How do you know?
Spoke about trees. How do you know?
Yeah,
because the plane has left the surface of the Earth. The plane has mass, so if it's left the surface, then the surface lays wet.
But there wouldn't be, like, gravitational pull wouldn't also be exerting pressure on scales if you had any big enough.
Well, no, because once they're off the surface of the scales, the scales would say 0, but gravity is still working on the plane. Gravity is still pulling it towards the Earth. So there's still the force of weight on the plane. So the world does change, but everything under the atmosphere doesn't change because you can't create mass, you can't destroy mass.
Yeah, that was the line I was reaching for and completely failing to pick up. You can't destroy mass, you can't create mass.
Yeah, there's lots of other examples of how the world will change, how heavy it is throughout the day. So he spoke about trees.
I have to warn you, before you carry on, I'm a very good friend now. I met him last week once, of Professor Brian Cox. So, don't try and pull the wool over my eyes or anything like that.
Oh, I'm not going to. He is a wonderful, wonderful scientist.
Legend, isn't he?
I'm very jealous you got to meet him.
Oh, great mates, big mates, showbiz chums. Carry on. Went to a show last night, went backstage. We didn't go backstage at all, actually. I took my daughter, but it was a really, really lovely time. Carry on. Give me some other examples.
Yeah, so he spoke about trees growing. Trees, when they grow, they get their mass from carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So, we talk about trees being wonderful for global warming. It's because they take away the carbon dioxide. And then they do photosynthesis, which turns that gas that's in the air into glucose. So then that glucose that was carbon dioxide is now in the tree. So the tree is heavier. So then the world is heavier because it's got that mass from the atmosphere.
Oh, because it's turned gas into solid, basically. Kind of.
Yeah.
Qualifications?
I've just finished my first year as a science teacher.
How are you getting on?
I love it.
Oh,
it's the
fantastic.
best job in the world.
Oh, mate, what an absolute joy. There's an index out today, I can't remember what it is, about the secrets to a good and happy life. And having a job that you love is very near the top of the list. So you and me, but go us, eh, Jasper? Go us.
Yeah, go it. Smashing it, James.
Round of applause for Jasper.
Thank you, James.
Lovely stuff. Thank you. And Eric should be pleased with that answer as well, which makes me a bit embarrassed for taking the mickey out of it. Plus, ça change. Mary's in Enfield. Mary, question or answer?
It's a question, please.
Carry on.
I got married 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to know...
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Very
I want to know...
You still together?
Yeah.
Phew.
We're doing well.
Carry on.
Right, so my voice changed before I knew I was going to cry. I went all high and squeaky before I cried. And I want to know what it is about our throats that happens that we go all... only dogs can hear us. Because we think of ear, nose and throat. We don't think of eye, ear, nose and throat. And like I said, my voice changed even before the tears started. I knew I was going to cry because my voice was happy. That was hysterical when it's like, I can't believe all of that. So, that's my question. I don't understand what happens to our throats, why they constrict. Before a tear, if you were blubbing a lot, I could understand, okay, so there's a lot of water going on, a lot of bogey maybe, and it needs to shut down for that. But before it's even started, why is it?
Must have constricted or something. Your pipes must have constricted slightly or something like that. But I like that. Why does your voice go up just before you start crying, or when you're about to start crying?
And then you have to swallow it down, and you have to go, okay, I'm all right, and then you can talk normally again. But it wasn't just me. I mean, obviously, everybody had a bit of a blub.
Of course.
It happened to.
Oh, lovely stuff. So it was a big day. It was like, so everything went off swimmingly.
Yeah, it was lovely. We really had a good time.
Lovely.
Really good.
Lovely. Honeymoon yet, or are you postponing it, or are you back already?
No, we haven't had a honeymoon yet. There's issues, respite care issues and things like that. So once all that's sorted, then yes,
you'll enjoy it all the more when it comes around, won't you? Mary, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, congratulations to you both from me and everyone on the team.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 12:45 is the time. A lot of responses to today's Woke Watch. Quite a few people pointing out. Rob at the front of the queue. Heineken used to be 3.4%, and they ditched it for the 5% export some years ago. My mum was gutted when they got rid of it, as it was her favourite. She'll be thrilled at the new 4% one. Carlsberg is 3.8% and always has been. John Hall says probably the wokest lager in the world. If they'd called it a session ale, anyone that knows anything about beer will see the rising popularity of session ales, which are quite low in alcoholic content, so that you can have an extremely long session. So the Sun's attempt to turn it into a story about being woke is ridiculous. When Whitbread brewed Heineken back in the day, the 1980s, it was only 3.6%, especially for the British market. This is ridiculous. What a silly story. And Ben says, wait until they find out about Shandy. They find out about Shandy, their little heads will explode. Bex Via with a V. That was about 3.4, I think. So, I mean, they've already... This is such a stupid story. Every Woke Watch story is stupid, but here's a particularly stupid one. And finally, David says, if you remember your younger days drinking at the Old Wagon and Horses in Bewdley... David, you know, for me, Bewdley was always about the pack horse or the black boy. Never really drank in the Wagon and Horses, in the Old Wagon and Horses. All of the lager there was served at around 3.5% to 4%. Only very recently, i.e. 10 years ago, they've gone for a 5%. So why this is such a woke travesty, I do not know. You and me both, David. You and me both.
Mystery Hour on LBC with James O'Brien.
12:49 is the time. We covered interest rates at the top of the hour, but the rest of the Bank of England's predictions make, if anything, for even grimmer reading. So we'll probably be having a look at some of those issues today, and indeed my colleagues throughout the day will be doing so. Back to Mystery Hour for now. A few questions still need answers. Can babies get earworms? I'd be surprised if that one gets an answer. Why do bodies of water make us feel tranquil? I think I've done that. But if you're qualified, then you can get on the board. Why does our voice go up in pitch when we are about to start crying? And how do thoroughfares get their name? Avenues, roads, streets. Some of them you can work out, but some of them seem to be identical in all but name. And why do you have to show ID to buy non-alcoholic beer? We've done almost all of the others, but if you know why pancetta is put with the hams rather than the bacon in supermarkets, then you can get yourself a round of applause as well. Andy is in Hull. Andy, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on, Andy.
So it's the answer about the streets naming process.
Do you speak German by any chance?
Do I speak German? Only a small amount.
What's the German word for four?
For four?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Wir. That's why it's Beck's Wir. It literally means four.
Wir.
So Beck's have had a beer called Four for years, and now Heineken have introduced one, and the Sun have gone nuts and called it Woke. Beck's Wir means Beck's 4%.
James, you should only be drinking German and Belgian beer anyway. It's far better.
I'm quite partial to Beavertown, actually. I know it's owned by a big brewery, but I quite like a Beavertown craft or a Sierra Nevada. Anyway, we digress. I'm probably breaking all sorts of rules. Don't drink alcohol to excess. And kids, don't go near it. Where were we? Streets, Andy. Thank you. Can't believe you spoke enough German to get me over the line there. Thank you, mate.
It's okay. I speak to a lot of German people. Bitte. So the street naming process actually goes back to 1847, which is to do with the Town Improvement Clause Act.
Yes.
And an updated version of the Public Health Act, which was done in 1907.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning that local authorities are legally bound to name properties and streets.
Yeah.
Now, in the good old days, what would happen is people would look at a location and think, okay, I'm going to give it this name based on what I see. So you'll see there's a number of streets around the country for all different types of names. There's one in where I live in Hull called the Land of Green Ginger. That's the name of the street. It's not a street, a crescent, or anything like that.
Oh, how lovely.
However, in recent times, the street name and numbering process has introduced a number of... there's about 14 really high-level guidelines that says if you're going to name a street and a location, including a house numbers, you have to meet a set number of criteria, and they have to be done in a certain way to stop misinterpretation, stop people, local authorities giving streets named after famous living people.
Yeah.
So that you don't have people like, there was one in Leeds, I believe, named after Jimmy Savile, and so on and so forth.
Have you seen that story about the football stand?
Yeah.
I was going to do this as a hook and tease today, but I completely forgot. You've just reminded me. I'll do it now. So there's a non-league football club has it's Southend United are in the National League, and they secured some sponsorship from Gilbert and Rose, a local estate agency. Do you want to tell people what went wrong?
They named it after a convicted criminal.
By accident, because it's the West Stand.
Accident.
It's the West Stand is sponsored by Gilbert and Rose, so it's become the Gilbert and Rose West Stand. which is not great, is it, really? So it just goes to show why you need these guidelines, Andy. You've got to be very careful about naming things.
And there is, and that's also why you've also got to be careful. You shouldn't be calling streets after, like, canal, because people can graffiti. So you'll notice that in the good old days that happened, but in newer days...
With my post-match analysis of Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss's debate popped up on some people's car radios in a very embarrassing way.
Yeah, and it was funny.
It was. So like road and street then is just pretty much, they might be looking at how many roads they've got already or how many streets they've got. So.
And what they'll do is they'll look at a certain area and they'll say, okay, we already have a high street here, or we already have a Sunset Boulevard or whatever.
Yes.
And what they try to do, the street name and numbering officers, is they try to, when there's a new housing development going up, they try to have like some type of theme that goes on around those streets. So you'll start seeing names very similar, maybe to a certain part of the country. Or
there's one in Kidderminster that's all English writers. You've got like Milton and Wordsworth and Bronte. It's lovely. Yeah. What are your qualifications then?
So I worked in local authorities for 17 years, looking after streets name and numbering and location intelligence.
There we go.
And now I'm a director of a large IT company that I go around the world speaking to local authorities and members of the public speaking about location intelligence.
Whoa. I mean, how many people are in your line of work then? How many people have segued from local authority to international consultant on this issue?
There's many people, but I've actually answered a question on your show before about 10 Downing Street and the street naming numbering process around that.
You're another one who loves his work, aren't you?
James, I have my dream job.
That's fantastic.
I honestly have my dream job.
I'm going to give you a Ray Liotta because I mean that is incredible that you. I mean, it's great that you listen anyway, but the fact that you are so qualified to answer this question is just superb.
I'm Ray Liotta, and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. If you build it, they will come.
Oh, the late, great.
You've made my day.
Well, you've made mine as well. That was lovely. I suspect I could talk to you for hours over a 4% beer and find out more about the world of street. I don't know why I find it fascinating. It's something to do with humanity imposing order on chaos. It's why I love looking at bridges. Humanity managing to put order on nature and chaos. Lovely stuff from Andy. Jasper, I hope you're still listening in South Croydon. Joanna's just texted to say, James, I'm pretty sure that Jasper, the science teacher, teaches my daughters. They absolutely love him. He's excellent. Spreading the love today on Mystery Hour. Jules is in Upton upon Severn, not that far from Bewdley, coincidentally enough. Jules, what would you like to say?
Yeah, a bit downstream.
Indeed.
So, let me try and answer the middle-class conundrum.
Please.
So, pancetta. So, basically, there are a couple of answers, or a couple of reasons. So, the first one is it comes under the category of charcuterie. So, when you go into a supermarket, the buyers, by and large, you'll have someone who's responsible for sausage and bacon as a category.
Yeah.
And then you'll have somebody responsible for cured meats and all that kind of stuff.
That's what I said. That's what I thought it would be, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So where you see it next to bacon, for example, that's just a decision in a store that they would have taken to put it there, and obviously next to the bacon lardons and what have you. Anyway, so that's the first answer. And the second one is that the product itself is cured. So if you look at Italian charcuterie, particularly pancetta, it's all cured. It's all raw, in inverted commas.
Yeah.
The only cooked products are mortadella and prosciutto cotto, so the ham, cooked ham.
I like a bit of mortadella.
You see, I love it too, but a lot of people think it's spam. But,
I was about to say it looks like spam, but it's nothing apart from, it doesn't taste anything like spam. It just reminds you of the palate maybe of that texture from childhood, but it's delicious, really delicious.
Go to Bologna,
melts in your mouth, doesn't it? Melts on your tongue.
Amazing.
Almost.
If you go to Bologna, you will think you've died and gone to heaven.
I'm going to take you up on that.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the reason that pancetta is there. And
so
actually,
it's a cured Italian meat, so it goes with all the other cured Italian meats.
Yeah,
pretty straightforward.
And that product in the cubes, it's to do with the amount of drying, because there are different types of pancetta. So in Italy, generally speaking, you would eat it out of the pack.
Yeah.
So you have what we have here in the UK is a thing called pancetta stesa. It's essentially belly pork. If you like,
you know your stuff. Qualifications?
Amongst other things, I work for a very large manufacturer of Italian charcuterie, and we specialise in pancetta.
Fantastic. Round of applause for Jules. Do you get to take your work home with you?
Frequently.
Yeah, I quite fancy that.
I have big chairs.
Top man. Grazie mille. Can I squeeze in one more, or should we crack on? Yeah, well, quickly. Scott's in Rothwell. Scott, question or answer?
Answer, mate.
Carry on.
Yeah, it's about the why do you need ID to buy non-alcoholic alcohol?
Yes.
Essentially, it's about not promoting alcoholic drinks to children.
Yeah.
It's a very dry reason, I'm afraid.
No,
because
it's a good
non-alcoholic beer is still promoted in the alcohol aisles in stores.
Yeah.
What they don't want to do is encourage children into that aisle.
Just get out of town. Is it illegal to sell it to minors?
Without for stores to sell it to minors, yes, it is within
really?
A store.
Because you are promoting alcohol to minors.
Yeah, in a licensed premises such as a pub, children can drink beer under 0.5% because it's not classed as beer,
that's woke.
But only inside. I know.
That's good God, how woke can beer get, man? Leave our beer alone, you woke warriors. Qualifications.
Stop putting fruit in beer.
I'm with you on that. Although there's one with grapefruit that's quite nice. Anyway, we digress. Qualifications?
20 years of licensee.
That'll do nicely. Round of applause for Scott. Cracking mystery out of that, and very difficult decision. So I'm going to do it entirely on emotion. And I'm going to give the board game to Mary this week because she just got married. And she didn't get an answer to her question. But James on the... I mean, anyone could have. Linda with her earlids. Loads of contenders there. So I'm just literally giving it to I'll tell you what, if anyone else who asked or answered a question actually got married more recently than 2 weeks ago, they're going to feel robbed. But it's too late now. There will be no steward's inquiry. Congratulations to Mary. That's it from me for another day. We'll be doing it again tomorrow morning from 10. Time for Sheila Fogarty. And 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 time for Sheila Fogarty.
Có người lặng lẽ ngồi buồn, biến chiều hoang vắng